Hi, welcome to this new tutorial. This is a walkthrough. I'm gonna show you the main highlights in the creation of this beautiful postal card representing some Mediterranean Greek village. Well, not some, it's Thera, it's Santorini, beautiful island. Too touristic for me, so, but anyways, I'm gonna walk you through the main steps creating this. And if you want all the details, like, in-depth instructions, color codes, and things like that, you can check the written tutorial on my website. You're gonna find the link in the description for this video. So let's start. The first thing I'm gonna be doing is creating this background, blue color, and then I'm going to add some basic shapes in order to block out the main structure for the village itself. I'm using a little bit of a rounded corner tool. You will see later on that I created a very quick and rough sketch from the reference image, and I'm gonna be using both of them. So now with some basic shapes, this could be the rectangle tool, or you can trace it also with the pen tool. I create the towers for the mills, and I add a little bit of a gradient. You can see in there that it goes from white to some kind of beige, and I then hit reverse because, I'm left-handed and I usually tend to put the source of light on the right. That's a problem for scientific illustration because the convention is all the way around. So you pick your source of light, you can put it here or there, just make it consistent. Now with the pen tool, and I always say the pen tool because I prefer to work with the pen tool these things better than the pencil, because the pencil, unless you're careful, it's going to create too many nodes. So pick the pen tool and trace these roofs. Just trace one and then copy paste it and duplicate it. That's what I mean. And place them on top of the towers. You can see I created a shape that was like brown, and then what I did is go into the pixel persona, I grabbed some texture brush and I clip masked it into the roof. So it creates a little bit of a, like it's illuminated, but the sun that will be there in a few moments. And it gives a little bit of texture. Now here we have the sketch that I created really quickly, as you can see. And well, you see this is a landscape format while the reference image is vertical. So I have to add a little bit more of a town that is not there. I also added some elements like the sun and a seagull flying. I will put later on some clouds, and for sure I'm gonna add some text. And now I start to just study a little bit the main blocks. I want to be loose. I don't want to get mental on, no, this window here, this sharp corner there, this arc in. No, I'm just tracing things very, very relaxed. It's Greece. Be relaxed. It's the Met. Please be relaxed. So trace those shapes, add some gradient, and just start blocking out things following both the reference photo and your sketch. Now continuing with the basic shapes, I'm going to use a rounded rectangle primitive shape. You can see that because of the little orange dots in them. You see them? I'm going to create this as if it was a Cubist painting. So very, very basic shapes. They don't have to follow the reality of, perspective and things like that. It just has to be something more loose than that. And we're going to be clip masking some other basic shapes inside in such a way that it looks like it has a little bit of depth. One thing that I try to do is not creating too many lines that will create a visual mess at the end. So I try to make them coincide even though they are belonging to a different shape. To keep going with the facade of the main building, I keep going with very basic shapes. You see there, I duplicate them, stretch them, change the gradients, the colors, and I just go adding them. I'm not really looking at the reference, I'm just, getting the right feeling for it. If you check in the written tutorial, you're gonna see a couple of examples of Cubist art by Braque and Picasso. And you will see that it's all about planes that cut each other and overlap each other with gradients and nice colors and a nice color palette. And that's what I'm trying to do. Now for the stairs, I trace a couple of shapes and I clip mask inside some rectangles that will do for the steps of the stairs. I also clip mask another shape that will do for the shadow. And remember, the sun is coming from the right side, So if we have a wall in there, it's going to be creating a shadow on that area. Now to create this window, in particular, the forged grid, I decided to go to the pixel persona and paint it with a brush, with some texture. Whereas for the other windows, I traced with the pen tool some basic shapes to create the frame, and basically that was all about it. Next, I'm going to take care of the background, so I start seeing things in place. I'm gonna place some clouds, which as you can see are basic shapes traced with the pen tool. I'm gonna create a line for the horizon and what we'll do for the sea, because even though it's not perceptible in the reference, I know if it's Santorini, there has to be sea around. So I put this darker shade of blue, and I also trace some highlights using the rectangle tool, putting them in vertical. I also play with the sun, cutting vertically with one of these highlights, because it's gonna make it more interesting. I may lose it at the end, but I just experiment as I go. And for the windmill blades, basically it's some basic strokes traced with the pen tool and some basic shapes traced with the pen tool. In this case, I decided, because it's quite a messy structure, I decided to trace over the reference image. I explained in the written tutorial that I could think of another way of doing this, but I find this one very easy and it results very well, so why complicating my life with isometric grids? Now for the plant pots, I created two shapes. They have inserted a texture that I created with a brush stroke in the pixel persona, and of course one of the shapes has a lighter color, the other one has a darker color, because one is hidden towards the light and the other one is in the shadow. Then I created the leaves using different shades of green. The leaves on the background have a darker shade of green, the ones on the front have a lighter shade of green. They all have an inserted shape in order to create a little bit of volume, and then to create a little bit of a shadow in the bottom area for the leaves, I created a shape. I gave it a Gaussian blur, and because I placed it on top of the whole plant, I used the transparency tool in order to make it visible on the top area but not so much on the bottom area. It doesn't have to be perfect, I like the texture of it, so yeah, I think it works very well, and it has a little bit of a watercolory texture, probably because I use the watercolor brushes to fill up the plant pot. So next, I bring it into my canvas, I duplicate it several times, I scale it, and I start to think that I want to use them to guide my eye throughout the composition. I think they make for a nice element, also a change of color. So what I do is try to create this kind of like a curve that goes from the background in the left and then back to the right as it grows into my face, into my eye. So I have it closer. And this is the moment when I realized that I wanted to put a frame and make believe that the viewer is looking from the window and one of the plants is going to be resting over the window. So that plant is going to belong to me, the viewer, from my window looking at the scenery, and the other ones are going to be fading away in the distance and, guiding my eye until we get into the mill. And there you see how I created this frame. What I do is overlap in several shapes, and to create a little bit of depth to the ones in the inner area of my overall structure for the window, I put a little bit of a darker color. Well, obviously this is an illustration. I don't want it to be perfect, so I give them, whimsical angles so it looks, more playful. Next thing is going to be adding some text, and I explained this in the written tutorial. I'm not gonna look for the typical Greek font because it's gonna give it a flavor probably of Olympian gods, and that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for more of a playful 60s groovy font. And yeah, I found this one. I link it in the tutorial if you like it. And yeah, different sizes, so I can just control the whole thing and make a nice composition. And we're almost done, but now is the most fun part, which I love, which is playing a little bit, trying to find the right colors for it, the right hues. So basically, go to the layer menu, new adjustment, and HSL, which is hue, saturation, and lights. And what you're gonna be doing here, well, is having fun, because you can manipulate the hue, the saturation, and the lights, as it says HSL, and you can just, tweak it to create different versions. I find it's lots of fun, and yeah, sometimes it's really, really hard to just decide which one you want, but I have fun. And at the very end, I always do this, not always, but I do it. I put another shape on top, a rectangle. I give it a color, a transparency maybe, and a blend color, and I start playing with it. So I have double fun with it, and I go double crazy until I decide this is the version I like. And so basically that's it. I would like to ask you to create your own postcard card and show it to us in the Facebook help group we have, and commenting or asking your doubts, etc. So I wait for you there, and have fun. See you in the next shoot. Bye.